Hello, this is Hawkman, and I have a great story to tell that's very spooky and based on real events that happened in West Virginia. So let's get on with it. There was this family of four. The husband and Brian, Belinda was the wife, and they had a son named Sean and daughter named Blair. And um, they were working and living in Baltimore, Maryland, and they wanted to get out in the country and say, hey, this is such a hustle bustle, so let's move somewhere. So they actually found this house, and they had to go across the board into West Virginia, which is kind of a long drive, but they found us, oh God, this is a place that we want. It's got nothing but woods. It's kind of the way, we grew up, and it's great. So they got the house and thought, man, this is a cool thing. The first thing they did is they had a birthday party, and her sister came over, Belinda, and they had helium balloons that float to the top of the ceiling. But one of these balloons actually came down vertically, straight up and down, just kept coming down. Everybody looked at it, and everybody will notice this. Say, hey, that doesn't look right. But maybe it's just out of helium. And then it stopped midway and started moving toward one of the kids. And it's like, that's awful weird because it just started horizontally moving. And this kid's like, hey, thank you, and started to grab it. And when she did, it went up to the ceiling. So, yeah, this is crazy because, if it had helium in it, it shouldn't have done that. So, and they all just thought it was a cool thing and brushed it off. But, one day when, their father, Brian, was saying, hey, let's go kind of look at the place around here and investigate. And they went out, and Blair was with him, and they kind of were looking around, went through some trees and weeds and all this. And they saw something weird, looked like a van. It was a van. So what the heck is that? And it was like burnt. It's like, that's awful strange. And they kind of looked in the van, and the back of it had kind of a burnt mattress and maybe some little toys and stuff. And Brian said, "This doesn't look." His mind, this doesn't look good. Let's get out of here and go back home. And they did. So, Brian, went off to go to work, and they were there, like for several weeks here, and he would come back on the weekends. But Sean was having a particular problem with saying there's a monster, like a black tall monster at his windows, and Belinda's, the mother said, hey, I know it's in the woods, and okay, he was kind of younger, but his sister Blair said, I'm bored, kind of, and she said, and they had kind of like a trailer, resort trailer or camper, and said, you want to camp out? And they said, oh, great, I love that. So she went out there and said, I'm going to camp out and have a good time. But they had a dog named Coco. Now, Coco was a black lab. One of those dogs that really, would take care of kids and is really good for protection. And so Coco went in with her and said, okay, have a good time in that RV. And when she was in that, she's having a good time. So she saw something walk kind of black from the door window. She said, well, that must be Mom. I want to check on it. She said, oh, it wasn't Mom. She opened the door and she closed it back. And Coco was going, arr, arr. He was growling. He was like, oh, there's something there. And she went back to bed and said, oh, God, I don't think there's anything there. But then Coco started arr, looking at the window. And she looked out the window, and there was this like black mess of looking tall man out there. She, oh shit, she didn't say that, but she actually got scared and went back in the covers. And put him over her head because she didn't want to see it. But Coco got, around her and said, he was going to protect her. So she was cool. She got up the next day, went in, and Mom said, how'd it go? She goes, I never want to camp again. Didn't really say what happened. So with all this going on and Brian being gone, the mother said, hey, we got to have a break. Let's go. We didn't have a car, though. The biggest problem was they didn't have 2 cars. So she got a car from her mother and said, you sure? I'll let you borrow it. And she goes, we're going to go to town. Well, there wasn't really a big town there, but there's a gas station, their store, and they went out there, at least up there, to get gas and talk and maybe get a sandwich in. While she's sitting there, some lady said, hey, where do you live? It's a small town. She goes, I live in this house right here. I said, oh, did you? Oh, I hate to say this, did you know what really happened there? She said, no, I'm not heard. Well, there was a bad fire and it burned everybody up, and the 4 people died in the house, the family, unfortunately. She goes, well, I hadn't heard that. So she got a car and, they went back to the house. But when they got back, Coco, in her pen, she was gone. They said, oh my gosh, that's a great dog. And we lost her. And, sadly, they never see her again. So, they were like sleeping one night after that. And Belinda had a dream. They all got this dream. And she saw a little kid looking at her at the bottom of her bed. And said, oh, what? And that kid kind of walked out. She goes, I'm going to follow him. So she followed him outside the door. And it was like these clotheslines and big, huge white sheets flying in there. She couldn't understand that. She's trying to get through it. And then something snapped on her foot. Ow! And then she looked down and it was a safe, not a safety pin, damn it, clothespin, and it snapped on her. And then she woke up. Said, "What the hell was that?" And then she looked down. She got up. Says, "Oh, is this a dream?" She looked in the floor. There was a safety pin, or not. Shit. Here we go again. Clothespin. So she just kind of said, well, that's gotta be crazy, but we don't have any clothespins. And she kind of thought about that and said, oh, not a big deal. But one night, Belinda had the same dream. It was like, okay, I'm gonna go out here, kind of follow this boy, and he went out in these like, pinned in sheets and all that. She actually got through this time, and she saw the boy. It's like a ghost. And she didn't understand that until this big black figure came walking beside him, and he kind of like started running like, oh my God. And when she did that, she kind of flipped out, out of the dream. And then when she did, she heard Sean screaming like, oh. And at this time, Brian was with her. This was on like a Sunday. And they both rushed to his room. And, he said the monster did. The monster, his arm, he's laying on the ground. His arm was twisted and broken. Somehow that happened. So they took him to the hospital and said, this is crazy. So we're going to have to fix it a little bit. It'll take a couple days. Let's keep him here. So he was in the hospital a couple days. And, Brian went back to work. And Belinda said, Mom, I'm going to borrow your car again. I got to go pick up Sean. And she went to go pick up Sean. And as they were going back home, the car tore up. And said, oh, damn. And then she looked around and said, well, let's see if somebody can, help us out. And this one lady did. She said, hey, you guys, I'll take you home. It's no problem. And this lady was taking her home. She goes, yeah, we live here. She goes, oh, you know the story about it? Oh, yeah, the people got burned. I heard about that. We actually found a graveyard somewhere on there with 4 people. That might have been them. And I said, oh, no, that's not the real story. It's that place had a man that lived there who was a bad man, and he was like a molester of children and did things he shouldn't have done, and the town couldn't prove it, and they couldn't prove it, and it got frustrating. So one time they took it in law in their own hands, and they went in there and they got him. Said, "Hey, let's go hunting." No, he said, "Okay." So when they went hunting with him, somehow he disappeared, never came back. And he had a van, and I think they burned his van, which had a lot of stuff in it to kind of get kids to come in. And that's the real story. And she's kind of like, her eyes are big. Oh my God, that's the person that's been haunting us. So she went back and said, hey, called her husband and said, "Hey, we need to get out of this damn place." And he said, "Well, okay." So they came back, and he came back, and that night before, she kept, something was tapping her on the back. She goes, "Guys, I think your kids are bothering me." And there's nothing there. And then she went, and her children say, "Hey, there's something in the window. It's the black tall man." And then she told her husband finally, say, "Hey, this is enough. I want to leave. We're out of here." And they did. They picked up, left out of there. They did come back and pick up their stuff, but they never returned there to live there again. And this is very creepy. It sounds like something would be in a movie for sure, but it does have a show on SYFY, one of their episodes, about where they actually talked about the paranormal, the people who were there. So if you want to check that out, you got SYFY, you'll be good to go. And keep it cool, and keep it cool. Hawkman out.